talk, and I wanted to discuss a video that I had made back during the presidential elections. I mean, it's such a miracle. We dodged such a bullet that Hillary Clinton is not our president today. And one major aspect of many, many aspects of why we have to be so thankful to God that we don't have Hillary Clinton as our president was she was talking a lot about UFO phenomena. She preferred the term UAP, whatever, it doesn't matter. Excuse me. And at the time I said that we better be careful, because if Hillary becomes a president, likely to stage a false flag attack, a false flag UFO event for whatever nefarious reason she has. Now, since then, recently, especially thanks, just in the past few weeks, especially thanks to Tyler at Secure Team, I came across someone I had heard of before, but I wasn't so familiar with his work, with Dr. Greer. And Dr. Greer's work is rather unique in the UFO field. It has a certain eclectic quality to it, first of all, but second of all, he is very much feeling he's a whistleblower to these false flag UFO phenomena. And what he claims is that he has evidence that for decades now, whatever the powers that be are, and he has descriptions of it, are planning false flag attacks that even quite often President, other higher members of the government are not aware of. Now, our current president, I was listening to Glenn Beck today, and unfortunately when I get to a certain point in my commute to work, I have an 80-mile commute each way to work, it's just around when Glenn Beck's show starts, and at that point I lose both the radio frequency that broadcasts Glenn Beck in our area, because there are not that many, because the powers that be have been trying to shut him down, trying to shut him up, because he's bringing out so many important truths into the public knowledge, and so probably more than any of the other talk show hosts, and in a unique way that I find very, very inspiring and very, really very great. It seems almost like a prophetic voice, and I'm talking even in comparison and in contrast to other conservative talk shows. But what he was talking about this morning was the loneliness that our President Trump has in the White House. How it's being expressed even artistically in a magazine photo essay. The sheer loneliness that the president has. Why? Because he is not one of the boys. He's not part of the powers that be. So, that being said, the difference that we have between Hillary and Trump, especially now, even though maybe Dr. Greer might disagree, I'm not sure, and I don't have to accept everything he says. I'm not, I'm taking much of what he says with a grain of salt, but I'm listening interestingly because he presents very interesting ideas. hear different ideas, because it helps me both understand my own ideas as well as, gain new knowledge and learn about the world. Now, that being said, Dr. Greer talks a lot about the false flag coming, and he also talks about his encounters with extraterrestrials. It's fascinating. I don't believe he's Jewish. He might be. He's a doctor. I don't know. He's an MD. But I don't think he is. He's from North Carolina. Maybe yes, maybe no. I have no idea. But he's talking about using Merkava. He pronounces it Merkava, but the way we pronounce it in Hebrew, Merkava, using Merkava meditations to actually visit other planets and then to invite aliens to Earth. And he claims that he was able to demonstrate this to several hundred people. I don't know if this is true or not. I'm going to take that with a grain of salt. But it's quite interesting for sure, especially when I hear Kabbalistic terminology being used in a way that, especially if you learn the Hechelos literature and so forth, that's an accurate usage of these Kabbalistic terms, even though the term Merkava means different things. It just means a vehicle. But it's neither here nor there. I mean, generally they'll call it a chariot because it's an ancient translation. But it means really Merkov means really to be situated on top of something, like a grafted tree is also called Morkov in Hebrew. So it's, and L'harchiv, to ride on a horse, to ride it, it's something you ride on. It's a vehicle that can take a rider on it. These are language discussions, and so too, through meditation, a person can visit other worlds. That is indeed a Jewish ideology in Kabbalah. It's not necessarily universally accepted, but it is certainly something that Kabbalistic texts read about. The problem with these trips is not the fact of whether or not you're traveling somewhere. Indeed, you are traveling somewhere. The question is, do you have the discernment to know what you're seeing is real or not? And that's something that people have to gain awareness of, and that's one of the things that a person can gain incidentally through the study of Gemara, through Talmud study. Rabbi Bart Zadok talks about this at koshertorah.com a lot, that the Torah and Talmudic study and so forth trains our character and trains our mind, that when we make these trips, we can be cognizant of what we are actually seeing and be aware, because quite often, as I discuss often, Rabbi Bart Zadok discusses often, that there are demonic forces that seek to fool us. And so Dr. Greer here, he's saying that there are powers that be that seek to fool us materially, but in the spiritual and psychological realms, just as much. And some of them are terrestrial and some of them are extraterrestrial. But the interesting thing is, this is my own idea and approach to this, is that essentially, I think with the new administration that we have, as opposed to what we would have had if Obama would have undertaken this, perhaps of the Bushes as well, although Dr. Greer claims that Bush Sr. was planning to do disclosure and was prevented by these powers that be that were not aware of this. So perhaps the Bushes are not aware, but I do believe that the Obamas and the Clintons are actually part of this. This is just my own feeling. Maybe I'm wrong. And especially they've made hints to this in various public forums, as opposed to Donald Trump has no record of discussing UFOs or aliens, even though there are interesting conspiracy theories about Donald Trump himself being a time traveler, because his uncle worked with the Tesla papers, and all the papers that the government seized from Tesla after they probably did away with him. It was Donald Trump's uncle, who was a scientist, who was given these papers, and there's interesting theories that Trump actually himself was involved in some time travel, and found out, various things that in a possible future, and really came back in order to save America from this rather dystopian future, from a future where perhaps ISIS would have brought great destruction. These are interesting theories, and there's actually, there was an internet troll who claimed to be a time traveler that some people believe was an actual time traveler and was actually Donald Trump himself. And these are interesting conspiracy theories. Again, I don't necessarily believe it, but it's a very fascinating story. It would make a good movie. But again, much of the movies now are not for the sake of entertainment, but rather for the sake of transforming our ways of thought. That being said, I think having Donald Trump in the White House does not lower our chances of having a false flag attack, UFO attack, and so forth. What I do believe, however, is the difference is Hillary Clinton probably would have spearheaded the effort. Donald Trump, it's possible he could be totally ignorant of this, and when these powers that be that want to engage in this event do so, Trump might be totally unaware of it, and they might use him and abuse his ignorance of these things for that reason. And I think for that reason, whatever Dr. Greer is teaching should, we hope, reach the ear of the president, so he is aware, if such a thing were to happen, not to jump to the conclusion that it's necessarily real. And although I doubt this would reach him, it might, who knows, not necessarily, I don't think my video would reach him, but who knows what powers that be might be able to reach him, or who might have his ear to be able to let him know these things are out there, or that these theories exist. But that being said, there should be an awareness among ourselves that this story is out there. Whether it's real or not doesn't really matter until it happens. But I feel, however, that these things that Dr. Greer is claiming, people should be aware of them. This way, if such a thing does happen, we shouldn't jump to conclusions, but rather we should be able to go out and let people know that indeed there is a claim like this, of a false flag attack, and we should not allow it to fool us, because one thing that Dr. Greer interestingly claims is that whatever actual extraterrestrials he's been in contact with are indeed friendly, which again, that might have to take with a grain of salt. Which ones are, which ones aren't. He makes a lot of interesting claims. So I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised that if whoever wants to stage such an event would keep this as a secret from President Trump, because he's not in the in crowd. Even in his own administration, he's rather pretty much outside of what's going on. I don't think he's even given information. He's trying to make the White House as transparent as he can, I believe in it. And I think and again, Dr. Greer says something very interesting, that the reason to stage a false flag UFO attack and so forth is for control, is to centralize power as much as they can. And this is something that, at least ostensibly, and I tend to believe him, and his actions have shown, that Donald Trump wants to return to federalism, to the original founding ideology of this country, of federalism. And these powers that be, that's the last thing they want. They want to have control. They want to have one world government and so forth. And because of that, and this goes back to the progressive movement in general, which, however, Trump seems to have been duped by to a certain extent, and so that's something we have to also. But the question is, he's not an ideologue, so UN, progressive, Woodrow Wilson, Obama, all of these things, we got to figure out, what that's really about. And become educated for that reason, not jump to conclusions, not to, so, keep an open mind, try to not be fooled by the powers that be that might be trying to, maybe they don't exist, maybe the whole thing isn't true, but don't dismiss it so quickly either. Try to, maybe Trump himself is also on the inside. We don't know, because he's always had insider connections, but I still think he's a bit of an outsider, and which groups are really probably the most dangerous are things that have Sabbatean and Frankist roots, and that's something people should study, be aware of. The Frankist and Sabbatean attacks really on our society, and these might really be linked. Who knows? There's a lot of things going on we don't know about. We see it even on the local levels. Like, you look at places like Bloomingburg, Kiryas Joel. The attacks on Bloomingburg and Kiryas Joel are not just attacks on the Hasidic community. These are mostly being done by self-hating Jews. That's one thing people should be aware of. But they're really more have to do with the attempt to remove federalism from our country, from the world, because really village government is really a great expression of federalism. And so, that being said, that's what's really going on here. And so all these things are really connected. If you really connect the dots, learn, there's a lot behind these things, a lot more than you might think. And so really, attacks against the Hasidic community are really attacks against American freedom. And that's why, we're so blessed to have a president who is probably the most pro-Torah president we've ever had. I mean, listen to his speech on the Holocaust Memorial. How any Jew can oppose the president after that speech at the Holocaust Memorial? It just doesn't make sense. Except they're either brainwashed or they're part of the problem. All right. Well, thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and God bless. And